Richie Rich Show.
Hey, what's up, y'all? Trucker Richie Rich here. Back on the ones and twos of my life, ins and outs of trucking and my journey. Main reason I create YouTube videos is to leave some sort of legacy, down the line, that future generations of myself can look at and reflect and say, hey, he did that. YouTube is going to turn into the archives, and it's going to be stuff that people look at 1,000 years from now. And I hope that my generation, my legacy, will make good decisions and be, reflecting, I guess, my ancestors or my future ancestors. Okay. It always makes me wonder what it would have been like to know your relatives from 100 years ago or 200 years ago, or even, to know what they think of or what they look like or what they experience. Hey, my bad, I'm back. I had to go turn the television off. It was distracting. But I get this question a whole lot. And, like I was saying earlier a minute ago, this is going to, YouTube videos and vlogging is like a archives for our future legacies, so maybe my great grandkids can look back and say, whoa, that was my great grandfather there. This is what he looks like, and this is who he is, during this time of his life. So I guess I can use YouTube as a diary. The reason I'm making this video tonight is because I get a lot of questions from a lot of my subscribers. This is a response to Russian trucker who just left a comment. I get a lot of comments from guys saying, Rich, why aren't you a police officer anymore? I had one comment on here. The guy was like, doesn't make sense to go from being a police officer to a truck driver. He's like, to join the police force is kind of a gun-ho thing. It's kind of a lifelong thing. And you know what? When I read that comment, it kind of triggered me a little bit. And I guess I'm going to share something personal with the YouTube world that I wasn't really going to share, but I guess I should. Because that is a good question. Why would somebody who was in a law enforcement career decide to give that up and go into trucking? Well, where do I start? I wanted to be a police officer since I was a child. My dad used to, every night before we went to bed, and my bedtime was like 9 o'clock, we used to watch Cops. When Cops first came out in the early 90s, that was our show. We used to watch Martin, then Cops. And, my dad used to be, he used to have a nickname for himself. They used to call him the mayor of Hurd Street. It's a town in central Pennsylvania. Because anytime there was disturbance outside the doors, he would get involved. And a lot of times it wasn't nothing serious other than kids messing around, fighting outside, or, somebody doing something stupid and they get yelled at and they get pushed up the street. That was my dad. He just wanted all the nonsense and bullshit away from his house. So, basically, hey, yo, kids, get out of here. And so kids in the neighborhood were calling him the mayor of Hurd Street. Then my dad used to work as a security guard as his second job. Dad held like 3 jobs when I came up, Later on in life, I understood why he did those 3 jobs. And I will touch on that in a minute in this video. But he worked 3 jobs. And one of the jobs was armed security. So I see my dad put on this Pinkerton uniform. Pinkerton Security is probably one of the oldest security companies in the United States. If anybody who's a historian knows of Pinkerton, they were around during, I guess, before the Civil War. Pinkerton used to be, if not mistaken, in charge of moving the U.S. Mint money around back in the day. But now they do security, and I haven't seen a Pinkerton security outfit in a long time. I think they got bought out by like U.S. Guard or some crap that's around now. But anyway, my upbringing was around police or just like a security type of deal. And then as coming up, my interactions with law enforcement weren't negative. You know, anytime they came to school, it was always a positive image. It was never a negative image. You know, they didn't come to my house to arrest my dad. They came to my house to say how my dad was doing. You know, it was very community oriented police. So when I turned 18, I went off to college. And when I was in college, I decided to do the Army National Guard. I joined the Army National Guard. That was a whole trip in itself. A quick story. The way I joined the Army, it's me and my buddies were in a dorm one night. And we're all, you know, looking at my friend E, who was from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. He had a I-30 Infinity, right? Brand new. Come to find out, E came from a well-to-do family, you know, but we were all sitting around talking one day, and he was like, you know, you could join the Army here and look, you can get your own Mercedes, you know, that little weekend warrior money, that can go to pay for that. And I was like, damn, you know, you're right. So all my boys like, yo, you know what? Let's all go sign up tomorrow, man. You know, let's go take the test and sign up. So the next day, I couldn't find them. So I assumed they went to the recruiter's office and signed up. So I showed up late to the recruiter office. I was like, hey, I was supposed to meet my boys here. We was going to sign up for the National Guard. You know, what are you offering? The recruiter gives me all this. But he's like, yeah, you know what? Your boys were here earlier. I said, for real? He said, yeah, he was here earlier, man. He said, yo, take the test here, man, here. He was, and then I took the test, and you know, what job you want to do? I was like, I don't know. At first I thought about being an MP or something, and then he was like, you know what? We have a bonus with the infantry. You know, you go down to Fort Benning and you train down there for this weeks and that. And I was like, for real? What's the signing bonus? Signing bonus was pretty big at that time, and so he was like, yeah, just sign here, right here, right here. So I went through the process in like a day, right? Took me over to MEPS, you know, man, I got a physical pass and everything. I mean, that was crazy. So I got back to the dorm like the next day or two, right? Because I didn't see my boys for like a day or two. And finally, when I caught up with them, I was like, hey, yo, man, the recruiter was Lopez. He was a Spanish guy. I said, yo, did y'all get with Sergeant Lopez? And they're looking at me like, who? I was like, y'all went down to recruiter's office, right? He said y'all was there. He was like, nah, man, we changed our mind. We didn't do that. We went down in the city. And my man, you know, my boy E and my boy Mike, you know, Mike lived in Philly, and my boy E and Mike went into Philly for a couple of days. They didn't tell me. I guess I overslept or something. And I looked at them. I said, yo, y'all didn't sign up for the fucking military? He was like, nah, nigga, we ain't doing that. I was like, oh my God. You could hear a pin drop. And they were like, yo, did you go down there and sign up for the military? I say, I fucking did. Everybody in the whole fucking dorm bust out laughing, man. I could not believe it. I fucking signed up for the military, man. Just like that, on some bullshit. And then my boy's like, yo, just get out of that shit. And so I went down there and I told Lopez, I said, yo, like, I don't want to do this no more. He said, well, you already signed there. Come to find out, I could have quit. But see, they were so good at lying to me. And I was young. I was naive. He was like, yo, if you don't show up here on this date, I have the MPs come arrest you right now and hit you with a charge. He said, you think I'm joking? I got a dude right now the MPs I got a warrant for. And I said, motherfucker. He's like, man, look, just go down there. You're only doing the weekend anyway, 2 weeks in the summer. So, like, what's the big deal? Plus, we're going to pay for college. I was like, all right, man, all right. You know, at that time, I didn't know. Not until I got down to Fort Benning. Oh, and another lie he told me. He was like, yo, you're going to real sweet basic. He said, Fort Benning, it's a whole lot of females down there, man. You're going to see a whole lot of people down there. That was a lie. Okay? It was nothing but men for the whole 14 weeks I was down there. And it was one of the most challenging things I ever did in my life. But anyway, you know, he was like, you can't get out of it. I was like, shit. So to say this is I ended up committing and doing it. Went down to training. That was hell. I'm a big guy now, but man, I left that thing skinny. That training was intense. Okay, a lot of my drill sergeants were rangers. I had one that was ranger because it was if infantry, special forces, and there was even a guy from Delta, and I saw Delta's platoon, which was amazing to see that. They walk around in black hats and mustaches. I don't know what they do now, but at that time they did. Right there on Rock of the Marne, if you guys know what I mean. Okay, I think that was the 132nd, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember now, so long ago. But God, anyway, when I got out of basic and I did my little reserve thing, I noticed that the local police department was hiring in my town, and I was in great physical condition. Okay, so I just went on a whim to try for it, and I got hired. And I went through police academy in Central Pennsylvania. I went through police academy in Central Pennsylvania, and I worked for a local sheriff's office, a local police department. And then I got hired on with the federal government, and I went to the feds down in Philly. And then I went to training down in Glencoe, Georgia. That's near Brunswick, Georgia, at the Federal Law Enforcement Academy down there for a number of weeks. That was awesome training. When I went down there, I met all kind of guys from the U.S. Marshal Service, immigration. It was weird for me. When I went down to Flexi, down in Georgia, there was a bunch of Spanish people walking around who didn't speak English, but they were in uniform. And so I come to find out that in the beginning of like the 2002, 2003 year, they were just hiring anybody to do the job because it was a new department created, I think. Like there's always been immigration and customs, but they were never like the way they are today. Like the way they are today, it's thousands of guys. But back in the day, it was not like that. From what I understood, if you lived on the border territory, you could just walk over. Okay, like there was no fence or gate or anything like that. Not until after that terrorist attack shit. But the government went through a mass hiring these guys, and not half of them didn't even speak English. It was the weirdest thing. But anyway, I did my training down there, and then I was with the feds for a while. And here's what it gets crazy. When I was military, and one thing I hate that they do, or they did, I don't know if they do it anymore, but they promote marriage. They shove this paper in front of you, and they're like, if you get married, you get this amount of dollars and this amount of dollars more. And it was significantly more money. And I was thinking to myself, well, shit, if I can do this and that, I can just do that. And I was with my girl at the time since I was in ninth grade. So here it is, I'm 23 years old at this time. And I said, you know what? Let's do it. So we went and we eloped. Now, here's where the story gets a little fucked up. Marrying young is a bad idea. And it was a bad idea for me. This all has to play with why I'm a police officer anymore. So some of you guys are still following me. This is the reason why. But, if you marry correctly, like the most important decision any man can make is who you marry. And I realize that now as an older guy. When I was younger, it was all about love and those emotions that you just don't have anymore at my age. You know what I mean? Marriage now is a different story. But marriage, when you were young, is the most exciting thing. You're in love. You would run through hell and gasoline draws for that person, and it ended up being very, very, very bad decision. Me and this woman who was from a small town in Pennsylvania, I took her out of that small town and I put her in a major city in Philadelphia. And you know what happened, corruption as far as her. I had 2 kids to her. And next thing I know, I wake up one day and I'm told that she didn't want to be married to a police officer anymore. So she said. But she was doing things prior to that just was just out of pocket, you know. And I always think to myself, man, if I kept her in that small town, we probably still be married today, you know, because I never, you know, when you take a young person who's never been to a major city and you expose them to the high life, it can be too much for them sometimes. And that's exactly what happened in my situation. Now, I'm not going to say I was always perfect, you know what I mean? But I'm sure if we stayed in a small town and we didn't have those exposures and those temptations, we would probably still be married. But I went through a very, very, very bad divorce years ago. Um, how can I say this? My ex-wife got around some bitches, okay, and I hate to say it like that. And you know, they really changed her. You know, I don't even know who she is. Even to this day, I don't. I'm glad that my children that I have with her are almost grown, so I really don't have to have that much interaction with her because the person she grew to, it might have been the person she always been, but a little temptation and a little flaming of the temptation gets you to become the person who you are, I guess. And she was this awful person, you know. How can I even explain this? Well, what I can explain is just it involved a lot of false allegations, a lot of financial manipulation, a lot of mental false imprisonment of the kids. I mean, the whole spectrum. Um, for instance, I come home one night and she's not in my house with my kids. You know, she's gone. And when I'm trying to call her, she won't answer the phone. You know, shit like that. You know, dumb shit. Um, you know, I think there's a place in hell for people and women who, or just people in general, that use kids as pawns. You know, um, this behavior from her was just ridiculous. It was. It was just. Now that I look back on it, you know, I can't believe I even went through that. So anyway, you know, basically what happened to me is I got caught. I got in trouble for some false allegations, and it put a sour taste in my mouth with the police department. And it was all through. It was all through through my divorce. See, when you a cop, okay, you have to be whistle clean in your life. That's why you always hear about police officers when they go through divorces or separation. You always hear about them eating their gun. That was a very big thing in the police department in Philly. You know, you had a lot of guys eat their gun, and the reason is because that image of being clean and being normal and not having any personal issues is a very big deal in police departments throughout the country. You have to project this image of perfect, you know, and my image was getting soured. I mean, I had to deal with child support, and let me tell you this: as a police officer, right? It was weird for me to stand in court and have to answer to a judge on the defense side. Do you understand? It was the weirdest thing, and the way they treated me in the court system was horrible. And see, basically, my ex-wife at the time, she didn't work, so they were taking probably 70% of my paycheck to pay for these two kids. And she even tried to apply for spousal support, and luckily the judge didn't go for that because I think they looked at my pay, was like, there's no way he'll be able to survive, you know. So at least they showed me some mercy on that. But it was brutal, you know, when I tell you that. I mean, taking care of your kids is cool, you know, providing for your family is cool, but being taken advantage of through the court system is brutal. And you know, I'm gonna tell you something. It changed my outlook on life, just what I went through. I used to be very black and white. And what I mean by that is if you broke the law, you went to jail, you dealt with the punishment type of guy. You know, if you did this, you did this happened to you. But now I operate so much in the gray. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't see black and white anymore as far as good or bad or right or wrong. I see a whole lot of gray. And it's because of my experiences. I went through during, a point of my life that I shouldn't have even experienced. So, it was that divorce was brutal. She took everything. Um, she got everything. She got all my furniture, my kids. And then she kept them from me for a number of years. And then she made some false allegations that caused issues with my job. Okay. All you have to do is tell, you know, internal affairs that he beat you up or he did this and that to you. Next thing you know, you're suspended with intent to terminate. And it could be totally false. And in my case, it was. She knew that I worked hard for that career, and she did things to make sure I didn't do it no more. That's why, even though it's been, let me think, it's been about 14 years, right? I still despise her. I do, and I try to be cool with her when it comes to the kids, but even then, she does things that just remind me of, like, fuck her. Do you understand? Because you don't do that to somebody. You don't have somebody falsely accused of something they didn't do just to ruin them. And that's why I hate snitches to this day. I hate rats. I hate people who, tattletale on other people just to cause strife and pain in their lives. I hate those motherfuckers. Because there's nothing like being innocent and being accused of some wildness. So that's why I'm not a police officer anymore. Because towards the end, even though I was clear, I couldn't get back onto a police department after being there for 13 years because my credit went to shit. Okay, going through a divorce, my credit went to shit. I owed everybody money. Not only that, I had a crazy allegation on me. And, now that, it was just wild. And, during the time that I was going through my situation, I didn't have money for a lawyer neither. I remember talking to a lawyer and he was like, look, I'll help you, Mr. Bell. I'll help you. But it's going to cost you $6,000 retainer, plus this and that and forth. And at the time, when I was a police officer, I was only making about $1,600 every 2 weeks, right? About $1,700 every 2 weeks. And she was taking every 2 weeks about almost $900 every 2 weeks. So it left me like literally broke, trying to pay for an apartment and a car. It was just awful. And, even to this day, like I said, when I read those comments, it kind of triggered me a little bit. I had to go to counseling because, some people, right? And this is why I hate about the internet. Some people, you look at them and their life turned out perfect. I remember there's guys that I'm cool with on Facebook that I went to the academy with that are now captains and lieutenants. And I got to pretend to be happy for those dudes. Do you know what I mean? Before I, was kind of forced to leave, I was training to be a detective, for my department. I wanted a desk job, and I saw myself progressing to, a colonel or a major. I saw it happening because people really liked me. They really liked me a lot. But man, all that shit got threw away. And I'm not going to say just all because of divorce, but some other things happened too, but mainly when you have a terrible person in your life, and, they can really fuck some stuff up, So yeah, when I read those comments, I'm not going to lie to you. I do miss being a police officer very much. That's a brotherhood and a camaraderie that is different. I miss going to the FOP clubs. I miss patrolling my neighborhood. I miss patrolling Georgetown, Southeast DC. I miss Northeast DC. I miss going to Henry's Soul Food Cafe. I miss Washington a lot. And I miss Philadelphia even. Some of the warrant units I worked, some of the guys I worked with were really cool. I miss the special details and stuff, And, when you're in trucking, right? Like I said, truck is like a second chance thing. You know, 11 years ago, I saw a truck driving on the highway, and somebody had mentioned, well, that's a pretty good career. Do I regret jumping into a truck? I'll be honest with you, yeah, I do. I do. Now I do. Because I understand the toll it takes on you. Now, don't get me wrong. During this time of my transition, I was transitioning out of being a law enforcement officer into just being a regular guy. And that was so hard at first. You don't know how many situations I almost got into because I wanted to do something, because when you work with truckers, you see all kind of bullshit out here, you know. You see everybody breaking the law, but then I realized I'm no longer a police officer, so it's improper for me to get involved, and I need to mind my business. Now I just mind my business, unless I see somebody get murdered or raped or something. But yeah, basically to answer your question, and I hope I'm not all over the place, and I hope you guys are able to follow me, but I went through a very, very, very mentally draining, financially draining divorce that just lasted for years, It was just awful. And even to this day, it still bothers me because, I wanted to raise my kids. I wanted to be, I love being a dad. It was the most proudest I ever felt in my life, walking in those doors and seeing my kids. But man, just in the blink of an eye, that all changed, you know. And it was crazy. And I call it karma. And I know I probably shouldn't say this on YouTube, but the guy that my wife at the time left me for, he ended up dying of a heart attack about 2 years ago. And when he died, she called me and cried, and I could have took that opportunity to really dig into her and rub in her face, but I didn't. I guess I took the high road, and I guess it's when I look at her, I still see the 19-year-old, 18-year-old woman that I loved. You know what I mean? I don't see who she is today, even though I'm smart enough to understand she's not the same person, But I could have rubbed it in, and trust me, I did. Did I like the guy? I could be a Hollywood actor, and it sucks what some people have to go through in this country. But I had to accept this asshole, being around my kids, and I had to even shake his fucking hand. And you don't understand how I wanted to break it because it ruined my life, when he came in the picture. And I'm not going to say it's all his fault. It's her fault too, because she made the decision. But, it just, I brought her around something that I shouldn't have, and I got a shit result for it. So I hope this video isn't too long or too dragging or too depressing. I'm sharing with you guys something that's kind of personal. So I hope you guys don't troll me too much. It's just, you never know what people go through out here. You know what I mean? You never know what people have been through. We all been through some trials and tribulations in our life. And trucking is, you meet so many people from different walks of life that have been through so much. That's why it's good to always treat somebody with respect, because you never know that you might be that one person to push them over the edge and they just start killing everybody. I'm sorry. Not saying I would do that, but, life has, it's been pretty decent, I guess. I made something out of it, but it's not what I really wanted. I would rather have came home to my family, and raised my family, because I was raised in a 2-parent household. My mom and dad been together 42 years. So, but the court systems in this country incentivize women, and my ex used to go down to child support every 3 months and ask for an increase. And the judge used to give it to her every time. I remember one time I walked into court. Mind you, I'm paying this $900 every 2 weeks paycheck, for child support. They're taking it out of my paycheck. And I was current in my support. So I'm figuring now I can try to figure out what I'm gonna do next. Walked in the court, my ex had put in for a increase. That was probably like 6 months ago, right? She put an increase for 6 months. The court hearing took so long to get around to have the hearing that when we had the hearing and I contested it, I said, Judge, I don't think it's fair. Two things happened. One, the judge looked at me and said, well, she's not working, so what do you expect? And I'm like, can you order her to work just like you ordered me to work? And the judge just looked at me. And secondly, I left out that courtroom $8,000 in the hole. And I was told I had 30 days to pay it or I'll be facing jail. Our court system in the United States know how to really, really stick it to a dude, and tear a family apart. So, it incentivized her to get free money and it's, not to work and live off this dude she was with, and it's a whole mess. So anyway, that's why I'm not a police officer anymore. And I hope this story wasn't depressing, but I'm going to have me a drink right now and try to forget about how I even talked about it. Peace and love.